Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Kicking It with Cal. I'm your host, Cal Deneke. We have episode 13. We got David Bracey in the house. David, what's good?
Man, Cal, what's going on? Just fresh back in STL from opening night of the NBA, and man, I'm excited for hoops. We're back. Hoops are officially back. Let's get it.
And this is the NBA preview pod. We got Brad Hardin. Brad, how you doing across the bay over in Tampa? How you feeling, man?
I wish I was feeling a little bit better physically. Been under the weather this week, but it's hard to be upset when NBA basketball is now in full swing, full slate of games tonight. Oh, I can't wait to, when I'm well, to pour up some wine and just sit back and watch how the season unfolds. I'm just happy to be here with both you and David, even though David, it is what it is.
So we're going to go ahead and get started. And the last time you saw us, we were doing an NBA playoff preview, and that was a few months back. Obviously, the Denver Nuggets took home the title over the Miami Heat. We're a few months away from that happening, and a lot has happened since. So we got a lot to catch up on, and we'll go ahead and get started. So we're going to go with the biggest storylines of this season. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to zag a little bit from the main things we heard from the offseason, but I'm going to go with the Golden State Warriors. Is this the last dance with the nucleus we've seen in the past 8 years getting it done? We know that Klay Thompson is getting a little bit older. His jump shot's still there, but in my opinion, could this be the last run we see with Steph, Dre, and Klay? So I want to pass it to you guys because I know this could be the last run. And if it doesn't work out, do they move on from Klay Thompson? What happens here? But as all of us have seen over the years, this is an absolute dynasty and with 4 championships. What do we see with Golden State this year? And can they make a deep playoff run? And if not, what happens to this team? Brad, I'll start with you.
I'm not sure what the future holds for this Golden State team. I liked what I saw last night outside of, falling short to the Phoenix Suns. And I liked the confidence that the younger guys are definitely playing with Kaminga and Moody looking really good early on. And obviously, I think Chris Paul is going to open up some things for off ball opportunities for Klay and Steph. And when Draymond comes back, he's going to be the maestro on defense to make sure they're in the right positions. I definitely think their window is closing. I still think they have an opportunity this year, but beyond that, I'm not really sure. I know the extension talks is probably nilched at this point with the season starting as far as for Klay. And it would be a shame to have Klay walk and not finish his career as a Warrior. It's just only fitting. But we'll see what happens with this year. Certainly, I've talked about it outside of the show. Be interesting if he makes his way down to L.A. where his dad played and won a couple titles with the Lakers after this, but just wouldn't feel right. Wouldn't feel right. So certainly, this is definitely their last hoorah. Certainly, I don't know how many more seasons you're going to get out of Chris Paul.
Mm-hmm.
So and Draymond just getting up there in age. So that this nucleus is getting older. Steve Kerr still seems invested, but that's definitely a big storyline that I'm going to be keeping an eye out on as well.
Mm-hmm. And seeing either Klay or Draymond in a different jersey would just be weird. So, David, what do you think about this team?
Well, I think Charles Barkley had a very interesting take last night when he said, the Warriors are cooked. I don't think that they are cooked, as Charles put it, but I mean, it's the short and sweet of it is, the Warriors are going to Warriors. But I'll believe it when I see it. And what I mean by that is I'll believe that they're going to make it work with Chris Paul when they're in the second round of the playoffs and Chris Paul is still healthy, because that has been something that we haven't seen from Chris Paul. I'll believe it when Chris Paul is still healthy in March, and the Warriors have won 50 plus games. But again, I got to see it. And I just had serious questions about their ability to get back on track if they really stumble out of the gates here. And obviously, the biggest caveat here is going to be Steph Curry's health. For his career, he's kind of been, I don't want to say injury prone, but he has definitely been bitten by the injury bug a handful of times. especially in recent memory. And that's not taking anything away from him, but definitely at this point in not only his career, but the Warriors dynasty era, if you will, they really cannot afford to lose a guy like him. So health is going to be the biggest factor, in my opinion, for the Warriors this year. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, and when they won that fourth title and they took the stage and gave those speeches, to me that's a moment I'll never forget because doing it without KD, doing it a couple years later after they went through some really really dark times in those years where they looked like they had a G League team out there half the time. So I'm really curious to see what they do. That's my biggest storyline, and I'll pass it back to David. What is a big storyline you're looking forward to for this 2023-2024 season?
Well, a big storyline that I've definitely been watching that continues to grow. It's the situation in Philadelphia. I really don't know what is going to happen. As recently as 72 hours ago, there were reports floating around about what a potential package for Joel Embiid would look like should he become available, and the New York Knicks would be, the leading bidder here in this potential situation. So it was very interesting to see those reports coming out. It's not surprising because obviously, if you know anything about the New York Knicks front office, and if you don't, the long and short of it is they were at Embiid's wedding. You would think that they grew up together the way that they're courting this guy. They have a serious interest and they have a significant relationship. So it's definitely a situation to monitor. And I mean, James Harden in himself, the situation with him is getting as thick as his waist. And that's as recently as today when Woj is reporting that the Clippers are supposedly out on the James Harden bidding war, whatever. I don't really know who the other bidders were. I don't know if that report is necessarily true. Um, we'll see. But what I do know is James Harden's not going to be at the 76ers opening game in Milwaukee. So that is, I mean, they're gonna have to figure that out. They really struggle, and I feel bad for Joel because he's always in this situation. So for me, the situation in Philadelphia is something I'm gonna be watching all year and into next summer because depending on what happens with Harden, Embiid could be the next domino, or maybe vice versa, depending on what they can or cannot get done. So
And Embiid coming off an MVP season where the East has gotten significantly weaker, you would think that Philly would be ready to take this thing. But for those who don't know, in the offseason, James Harden was in China and the cameras are rolling and he calls Daryl Morey a liar, says he'll never play for him again. And that is just too much drama for Joel Embiid, a player that really deserves some more postseason success. So, Brad, what do you think about that Philly situation?
Just like honestly, never mind one of the hits from Drake's album, "Sticky." It's just a very sticky situation, and I it's hard for me to see Embiid being moved. I mean, I think he's just the cornerstone of that franchise at this point. And he is one who has just basically immersed himself in that community in Philadelphia. I mean, we saw him just a few nights ago at a Phillies game cheering for them as they were in the NLCS, trying to get to the World Series. So it's hard for me to see Embiid being moved, but James Harden, I mean, he's made it clear that he doesn't want to play there. And we've known from years past that professionalism may not always be the strongest suit when it comes to James Harden. And that, if we're going off of that, that past record, it's hard for me to expect anything different going forward. So you're going to have a disgruntled employee. Obviously, you want to move them out of your organization. But when the well is drying up, as far as when people are asking for his services, when push comes to shove, I mean, we just don't know what the situation is going to look like. Is he going to sit out games? Is it going to be a phantom injury that he is sitting out for while they try to work behind the scenes and get a deal done? Or will he, swallow his pride? That's a lot to ask at this point, and suit up and play, especially when you talk about the East is wide open, despite some of the moves being made by other teams in the top half of the conference. So I don't see Embiid being moved, but certainly the rubber has to meet the road when it comes to James Harden in the 76ers. And will this be a marriage or a nasty divorce?
Yeah, and I'm glad we got that James Harden talk out of the way because we don't need to spend. I mean, he's just one of those guys that brings attention to himself and a phenomenal player, Hall of Famer, first ballot. But come on, man, like that we're good. So, Brad, what's your biggest storyline of this NBA season?
My hoodie is given away. I'm not trying to be a homer, but can Zion stay healthy? I think that's one of the bigger storylines in the Western Conference when you talk about the Lakers and the Suns and the Nuggets. You're talking about these teams that are trying to dethrone the defending champion Nuggets in the Western Conference. The Pelicans' ceiling is as high as it can possibly be if Zion is healthy. Now they're starting the year already behind the eight ball with Trey Murphy being hurt and Jose Alvarado having an ankle injury in the offseason as well. So injuries have plagued this Pelicans team, and that's what has removed them from a lot of conversations of can they be a top tier team in the Western Conference. But certainly Zion looks good. I'm not going to allude to my fantasy basketball name on this podcast. I know David will roll his eyes. He knows what I'm talking about. Cal will talk about it outside of the program. But certainly that team is a team that can contend in the West if Zion is healthy. Now, I'm not going to ask for 82 games. That's unrealistic. Can we get 65 games? Can we get 60? Hell, can I get 55 and you sporadically, rest him to make sure that he is geared up and ready to go for the playoffs? Whatever you have to do in New Orleans to keep him, BI, CJ McCollum, who's been battling injuries, Trey Murphy, who, when healthy, he was one of the best 3-point shooters in the league last year. Herb Jones, who can't stay healthy. I don't know what hospital or clinic they're going to in New Orleans and need to fire them because everybody's getting hurt. Everybody's brittle down there. But if Zion can stay healthy, he's the key. We're looking at a team that could potentially be a top 5 seed in the Western Conference and could potentially make things very interesting come playoff time in obviously April.
Yeah, and I love the versatility that New Orleans has. I think at one point last year they were 23-12, and people were thinking the sky's the limit with that team. But as you said, Brad, it relies on Zion's health, and we'll see if he can get back to that form because in spurts he's looked like a first team All NBA, just all world guy. But I don't know if his track record has proven that he can do that in an 82 game season. So I'll move on to my second storyline because we're each going to hit two, and that is the big thing: can Denver repeat? And for as good as they look, and I know they've changed up their roster a little bit, they moved Bruce Brown to Indiana. I think Christian Brown's going to step up and take some of his minutes. They got a young kid, Peyton Watson, who looks to step up. They're trying to, move up internally. Didn't make a lot of big moves in free agency, but they've got their big four with Jokic, Murray, Michael Porter, and Aaron Gordon, and that's about as solid of a four as you can get in the NBA. So we know Jokic is all world. We know he can do everything on the court. We saw in the opening night last night his 23, 12, and 11 stat line. David, you can elaborate that on a second. You were there to see it live, but can they repeat? It on paper, it looks like they can, but you talk to or you hear GMs and coaches and management talk about how it's the little things about chemistry and what goes into winning an NBA championship. It's not just the stats. It's not just how much talent you have, but can they repeat that process of what it took to go all those months and take it away? So do you guys think? I know we're going to get to our predictions later, but I think Denver has a great chance. I just don't know to repeat how much that would take.
Yeah, I mean, definitely being there last night and seeing them. It's the same team, but it's a different team. You alluded to some of those elements, Cal. Peyton Watson. I'm very curious to see how they use him. He's kind of a tweener. He's too big to be a guard. Not necessarily big enough to be a forward on the low post, but he's big enough definitely to guard some of the more agile wings in the league. He's not quite as big as Aaron Gordon. He needs to fill out a little bit more, but he's very interesting. You saw flashes of his athleticism, his playmaking, so I see some potential there. To your point, Christian Brown's going to get all the run he can handle because Bruce Brown ran out the door. I think the biggest beneficiary from Bruce Brown leaving, however, is going to be Aaron Gordon, and you kind of saw that last night with him, opening up a little bit more playmaking, especially in transition. A lot more fast break playmaking from Aaron Gordon. Obviously, he's great finishing around the rim, and he's a great defender. So I think that they're really going to try to use him as more of a Swiss Army knife than they have in the past. But everything runs through Jokic. I mean, that guy, everything runs through him. And even when you felt like the Lakers were starting to make that push and LeBron comes off the bench at the end of the fourth and you think, oh, this is it. This is when they're going to come back. Jokic is just that metronome that just keeps them balanced, keeps them grounded. And the actions that him and Jamal Murray run with one another, it's the definition of symbiosis. They have such an incredible feel for the game and for where each other are on the court. And it's going to be fun. So, I mean, good luck to all the teams who gotta deal with them. Brad, what do you have anything to say about the Nuggets?
Continuity is their best friend at this point. I mean, having pretty much everybody. I mean, you alluded to Bruce Brown being gone, but essentially, I mean, when you have most of your core in place and most of the coaching staff still in place, it usually bodes well for that team to go on and try to repeat. Now, will they do it? You never know what's going to happen. Injuries, can another team make a move at the deadline to give them that push to really challenge this Nuggets team? But as you have both alluded to, on paper, I mean, there's no question that they should repeat. I mean, it was a very impressive performance last night, especially when you have a very motivated Laker team. And Coach Malone even mentioned, hey, I mean, we're celebrating, we got the banner dropping, we got our rings, but that team wants to kick our ass. And he candidly said that, they want to do that. And certainly we heard the chatter with Braun and AD licking their chops to get an opportunity at that Nuggets team, and they got all they can handle on opening night. Now it's opening night. That's not this team that we saw for the Lakers. That's not going to be the same team come obviously later on in the season. You never know what's going to happen. But on paper, the Nuggets have everything in place with Jokic and Murray and KCP and Gordon, MPJ and others on this team. They have so many people back that it's hard to go against them. So I think that they're going to have a really strong regular season. They should be at least top 2 seed, depending on what goes on in Phoenix, and should be in the Western Conference Finals again.
Mm-hmm. And outside of New Orleans, Brad, what is your second biggest storyline coming into this season?
I think the in-season tournament. I mean, I really want to see how this in-season tournament shakes out. I mean, I want to see the interest. I want to, and as far as fans, I want to see the interest in players. I love seeing the in-season tournament, how it plays in the WNBA. I mean, we got to see a pre-WNBA finals battle between the Liberty and the Aces, who obviously were in the WNBA finals, and obviously the Aces won. Shout out to the Aces in Vegas. But who will be the team that steps up? Will it be the top contenders, or will some teams kind of, not take it as seriously, and we're going to see a young, hungry core put on a show and surprise people and win the in-season tournament, like the Thunder or the Magic, who a lot of people are high on, and so forth. Those league pass teams, when they get an opportunity on a bigger stage and they get a national televised game because they have played well in that in-season tournament. Who knows? I mean, the sky is the limit on them. Obviously, we haven't seen this done in the NBA per se. We've seen it in professional soccer over the season. I love those mid-season tournaments when you're talking in those leagues over there. We've seen it in the WNBA, and I do like it in the WNBA. How bought in are the players and the coaching staff? Are the incentives big enough, or are they looking too far ahead to the playoffs and they don't take it as seriously? So they start very soon. The beginning of November, we're going to start seeing those in-season tournament games, and I'm excited to see how it plays out in pool play, who makes out of pool play, and obviously it gives us a little bit better basketball before Christmas Day for us to potentially watch.
Yeah, and for the casual fans out there who hear in-season tournament and think, what is this, like a high school tournament? Are they going to play in a 3-4 day stretch like that holiday tournament, David, back in the day? But No, it's just going to be regular season games as they go, but they're going to be called in season tournament, and then I believe the top 4 teams will go to Vegas. Is that correct? And do the championships.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's gonna be pool plays. Everybody's in their own pool. They'll play each other at least each once, and whoever has the better record in that will advance into a tournament bracket, and then they're going to play it out as the season progresses, as far as with the in-season tournament. And they will, I think, I want to say, David, it's one game a week or so. Is the format, maybe two. I have to go back and look at the schedule myself, but certainly we're going to get those sprinkled into early season competition as far as the NBA regular season is concerned. So I'm really excited to see who's going to take it seriously.
And David, what is your second storyline to wrap up this segment before we move on?
Oh, Brad touched on an in-season tournament. It was interesting to get to see Adam Silver kind of talk about that yesterday in person. They have a lot of high aspirations for it, so I hope that it works out well. I hope people tune into those games, and more importantly, I hope that the players care about them because I think it could be fun. So yeah, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. And the next segment I wanted to go to is who is this year's team that's going to make the biggest leap? Last year, we saw the Sacramento Kings come out of absolute nowhere and lock down that 3 seed for a majority of the season. And I think it took a lot of people by storm, and just that whole scene in Sacramento with Light the Beam and all that was fantastic. So, David, in your opinion, who's most likely to make the biggest leap this year to make us, turn our heads and say, whoa, where did that team come from in the West or the East?
Well, I feel like Jalen Rose on this podcast right now because I'm about to scream out Detroit basketball. I think that the Pistons are going to surprise some people. I would have said the Pacers, but I think for those who didn't already know, they got to see a little bit of Tyrese Halliburton over the summer, and he is very fun. Yes, he definitely fits the bill. But the Detroit Pistons, they are on the come up now. You may wonder why. Why do I see the Detroit Pistons? Like, oh my, who do they have? The one of the Thompson twins, the pick one, amen or amen. Um, no, it's a combination of a lot of things, but most importantly, it's the new head coach they got, and that's Monty Williams. Now, for those who don't remember, Monty Williams showed up in Phoenix in the middle of the desert, and he turned it into an oasis. Okay, that was not just because of Devin Booker. That was because of a system that Monty Williams put into place, and because of his ability to coach. He is a player's coach. Okay, so forget what you heard. That is what it is. I think he has a lot of great players in Detroit. I think Cade is the real deal, and he got a raw deal last year when he got injured. He looked great for the select team. They got a lot of athletes. Jalen Duren is this weird Sean Kemp, Ben Wallace combination, and it is scary. And I think the Pistons they're gonna make some noise. So that's who I'm rocking with.
I like that pick. I don't think DeAndre Ayton would like what you just said about Monty Williams, but that's a whole conversation for a different night. Brad, who is your biggest leap team this year?
This might surprise some people, and because this team was a playoff team last year, but I'm going to go to Brooklyn Nets. I think when you have everybody here for a full year, a full off season, and I'm going to say this now, I'm not going to wood as I say it. Ben Simmons did look good in preseason. He did. And I like his playmaking ability. You don't need him to carry the team, but certainly we know what he can be as a facilitator. We know what he can do defensively. And then when you pair him and obviously Claxton in the paint, those are really good defensive players. Dorian Finney-Smith can defend. Bridges can defend. Cam Johnson's an adequate defender as well. They have some people who can defend. They have some people who can score. And I can't forget Dinwiddie there scoring. I just think that this is a team that is going to just be steady all year long in the Eastern Conference. I think they'll surprise some teams here and there, and don't be surprised if they make it out of the play-in or they are the 6th seed for some reason, and maybe they surprise someone even if they get as high as 5 for some reason. They surprise a team. Maybe they beat an Atlanta Hawks or something like that and move on and get to the second round of the NBA playoffs. So I think they're a team that, even though they made the playoffs last year, I think a lot of people are not thinking about them per se, and I think they could surprise a lot of people this year. But I love David's pick, in Detroit. I will allude on them a little bit later.
And just how I loved how David made the analogy of Jokic as a metronome. I think you brought up a great point, Brad. That team is going to be steady. And I loved what they did last year getting Mikal Bridges. I think, they got a lot of wings. That's what I'm a little nervous about. But I do think that team is going to be steady, like you said, and be a playoff team. They're going to be fun to watch. They're obviously a couple pieces away, but I like what they're doing in Brooklyn. So my biggest leap team, I knew we were going to talk about this team eventually. If they didn't get brought up in our League Pass segment, it's going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder. And for the NBA heads like ourselves, that's not a surprise to think what this team has in store. But I just think with the amount of young talent they have, if you guys saw the Slam magazine cover the other day with Chet, with SGA, Jalen Williams, Giddy, and Lou Dort, that's just a squad, and it keeps reminding me of that young Oklahoma City Thunder team back with Kevin Durant, Westbrook, and Hardin, and just how young and agile and aggressive they are. And I just think this team could shock a lot of people this year. And I know the West is very deep, but SGA is a bona fide superstar. He was all NBA last season. Shea Gilgeous Alexander, if you don't know the name, get to know the name, averaged 30 a game last year. And,
Talk about it.
this team, I just love that they're in a low market. I love that, not a lot of attention, and they just play hard. And I love what's going on in Oklahoma City. I'm so excited because the league is so deep. You've got teams that aren't expected to do great with so much young talent. You've got teams that are expected to be great with the superstars we see. I haven't been more excited about an NBA season in a long time. So Oklahoma City, I'm going to be watching you to make a big leap this year. So we'll move on to our biggest disappointment. So I know for me last year, watching the Cleveland Cavaliers lose in the playoffs the way they did to the Knicks was a big disappointment because I saw a lot of promise in that team. And not to say that this pick has to be who's going to lose in the playoffs, but just as you see the season unfold, David, who do you think is going to be a team that disappoints, whether it's from last year's expectations or what we expect to see coming into this year?
Maybe I'm biased or maybe I'm crazy. I could be biased because I saw him up close last night. I could be crazy because I got him on my shirt right now and I'm about to talk him down. I'm concerned about the Lakers. It's been one game. I'll be honest, it's been one game. I'm concerned about the Lakers. You spent all this money on Gabe Vincent. Well, Gabe Vincent ain't in Miami no more. And it showed last night. It showed. Now it's one game, but it showed. D'Angelo Russell is apparently still downloading, okay? One day we will see the final software, okay? But I don't know what it looks like, okay? We've been in beta for half a decade now, okay? So please, please, okay? Anthony Davis looks awesome for 16 minutes. And then he looks uninterested or he looks injured. Take your pick your poison. Okay. I have real concerns. Torian Prince is out there pulling threes, and he's a substitute starter because they don't have Vando. Well, Vando's a worse shooter than Torian Prince. I mean, Austin Reeves had to carry them on offense with LeBron, and outside of those two guys, there's really nobody really creating, really doing anything. I have serious concerns about the Lakers. LeBron can't keep carrying them like he needs to, like this. I mean, it is reaching the point of critical mass. So we'll see. Maybe there's some kind of crazy trade coming down the pipeline that I'm not even aware of, and hey, shake it up. But right now, I mean, the Lakers look shooken up. There's reason for concern. So that is the team that I would have in my crosshairs.
And that's the team everyone's going to have their eyes on this year. I mean, LeBron's in his 21st season. They're coming off a Western Conference run where they got swept, but they look competitive against a phenomenal Denver team. So seeing them in person, I can't disagree with what you're saying, but a lot of people are high on them this year. Obviously, Austin Reeves is taking a lot of steps up, but the D'Angelo Russell piece to me does look a little concerning as well. Brad, what do you think about the Lakers?
I don't know what to think about the Lakers, to be honest, because I can see them. I can see them making a run, but not making the finals. But I can also see them having a lot of injuries and again, just maybe getting in the play in and having a scratch and claw and be in the same position they were last year, which obviously you have a aging LeBron and you have an AD who is susceptible to injuries. You don't want to be in the play in. You want to make sure you can potentially rest starters down the stretch. Put yourself in a position to be a little bit more comfortable as the season winds down and you gear up for the playoffs. And I I am not high on the Lakers personally. I certainly have all the respect in the world for AD and LeBron James, and I was an Austin Reeves hater, not a hater, but I was a skeptic. I was a skeptic of Austin Reeves. Because certainly some people can be blown up because of the jersey they wear when they step on the court in crypto.com arena that says Lakers. They can be propped up because they have all these nationally televised games. But the guy can hoop. But I don't know if they've done enough. They made a lot of little ancillary moves, but nothing to really move the needle and say, hey, this is a team that can challenge and get to the NBA Finals. And if they do, it's going to be on the backs of AD and LeBron. And how much can they really take on their shoulders at this point in their careers to get to the NBA Finals? So I'm a skeptic of the Lakers. I like the fight I saw last night, but certainly, I mean, they're not going to play with that intensity and that effort night in and night out. So, what does that look like as far as their record coming to the end of the season? Who knows? But certainly, they need to shoot for at least a top 6 seed to give themselves a chance to make a run.
Mm-hmm. And the team that the Lakers knocked out in the playoffs last year, the Memphis Grizzlies, is my pick for biggest disappointment this season. So we know that they ended with the 2 seed in the West last year. They had a great season, but we all know the Ja Morant drama, 25-game suspension for doing what he did on Instagram Live last year twice. So I just think Memphis is going to struggle with Ja out. He's a phenomenal player, but Marcus Smart gets the ball getting traded from Boston, and I think he's going to try to do a lot. One of my favorite players to watch over the last 9 years has been Marcus Smart, but I saw him in Boston, look like he was Kobe at times and just try to take as many shots as he could. And I feel like that might be the case with Memphis. We know Steven Adams is out for the year. That's a major disappointment for that team. I love what Desmond Bane does for them. But in as much as people talk bad about Dylan Brooks and everything he does on the court, off the court, he was solid for them, and he's a great defender, and he's a gamer. And with him in Houston, I do think that's going to be a big loss, even though I'm sure a lot of people were happy to see him gone. A lot of people thought he'd end up in China, and I don't even know what was going on with that story. But Memphis is going to be my biggest disappointment. I just think coming off a year where they were the 2 seed, I don't think they come close to that again, and we'll see what happens in Memphis. So I don't know if you guys had a take on that, but that's my biggest disappointment.
The only thing that I would add is, I mean, I agree with everything you said. The only thing that I would add is, losing Steven Adams, I think is going to be incredibly devastating for them. It really hurt them last year, but just not having him necessarily around in the locker room, with JJJ's foul trouble, with them not having Brandon Clark because of his ACL, I think you're right, Cal. I think the Grizzlies are really going to be in trouble this season. So I hope Ja can stay out of trouble because that's really their only hope there.
Yeah. And Brad, who's going to be your biggest disappointment this year?
I'm going to say the New York Knicks. I think the New York Knicks are going to be my biggest disappointment because when you look at what they've done this offseason, I mean, if adding DiVincenzo is the best thing that you did this offseason, you didn't do anything, in my opinion. And certainly, we've seen a trend of the Knicks have a good year, bad year. Good year last year. If you look at the sample size, you're going to think they're going to trend down. You have a year of film of, Jalen Brunson, who played phenomenal last year. I'm not taking anything away from him. But certainly you have a year of film on him and you have scouting reports on him. What can teams draw up defensively on a night in, night out basis to limit his playmaking and creation for others? We know that Julius Randle is a very streaky player, especially when he decides to not play in the post and decide to just shoot an ample amount of threes, which we see him make a lot, but we obviously see him miss a lot as well. And you're still, hoping for Mitchell Robinson to give you something. I mean, and when you're rolling out Jericho Sims and, Josh Hart, who did play well, in Fournier, I'm just looking at a bunch of players that are just really lackluster. I mean, and when you put it together last year, when you put a bunch of lackluster players together that believe in each other and believe in what they're doing, you got the product that you had last year. But will they have that same belief this year? I'm not entirely sure, especially when the East has gotten tougher. And certainly, Davis mentioned Detroit. I mentioned Atlanta, and I'm trying to not mention Atlanta a lot. I think Atlanta is going to surprise some people this year, and just others. I mean, I just think that. I mean, you mentioned the Pacers. I mean, and who knows what the Bulls like? So they're just other teams that, on a night in, night out basis, can beat this Knicks team, and I think that they can be beaten on any night, and hopefully they don't get beaten more than they were last year. But certainly if they do, they're not going to be in a position to not be in the play-in. They're going to have to scratch and claw out of the play-in. And I don't see this team having enough offense to get out the play-in and making a substantial run in the Eastern Conference to have people on Bing Bong talk about the Knicks are back. They're not back. They're not back. So, and then I will throw a second team real quick if you don't say this team. And only reason why I said this team has the potential to disappoint, because it really depends on who are they going to give the keys to in this team. And I think it's the Minnesota Timberwolves. Are you going to give the keys to Ant, who had a great summer? He looked amazing on Team USA. I loved what I saw from him. And I think being coached by Steve Kerr, I think took his game to another level. And I'm hoping to see that this year as well. But again, the Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns dynamic, will it work out, or will it kind of end up in a point where trade deadline, Cat is getting shipped out of town, which I've been saying he should have been traded this offseason. He wasn't. I think this trade deadline is the time that Cat is moved to a potential contender. So that's my 1A, 1B teams for teams that could disappoint.
Okay, I like that. And we'll move on to coaches, because there have been a lot of coaching shakeups in the league. And it seems like the trend over the NBA in the last couple of years is if you can't get it done, you're gone. And we saw Dwayne Casey win Coach of the Year, I believe, for Toronto a few years back, and he's gone. Mike Budenholzer, gone. Nick Nurse, gone. So there's a lot of coaching shakeups, and I'm curious to see what you guys think. What coach are you, Brad, keeping your eye on the most this year, and why?
A coach that's already made headlines, and this might have missed people, mainstream sports fans, but certainly NBA savants like us here in this panel. Adrian Griffin with the Bucks. I don't know if a lot of people have seen the news, but Terry Stotts was brought onto their team. He is now resigned prior to the start of the season from an alleged incident and shoot around. Now, when Adrian Griffin was asked about it, he was shocked by him resigning and said it was a personal reason, but that is a potential hiccup there, because we already know what Terry can do offensively as a coach. Now, his problems in Portland were on the defensive end, which Griffin, being in Toronto in that system, that was always a team that was a pretty solid team defensively. And they already have good pieces there with the Bucks. And certainly when you re-sign Giannis and you upgrade offensively from Drew Holiday and get Damian Lillard, this is certainly a team with championship aspirations. This is not a team that is, fighting for a playoff spot. This is a team with high expectations. And how is Adrian Griffin going to manage this team that still has a lot of their core from their championship run still in place? Like I said, you have Giannis for several years. You have Pat Connaughton. I don't know why I put him. It's just where I typed out. I'm not saying in importance, but
Pat Connaughton's a beast, man.
Yeah, he's a baller. Like he's definitely a baller. He plays his role on that team. And certainly in flashes, like sometimes he's really streaky, but I mean, he's part of that nucleus. That's what I'm saying. And you have Portis, Middleton, you have Brooke Lopez, and you add pieces in Robin Lopez, Cameron Payne, you have Malik Beasley, who's a sharpshooter, and Jay Crowder, who has playoff experience. And then I'm really interested to see what Beauchamp's going to do this year as well. I really like what I saw in preseason. He has some flashes and certainly a very athletic wing that they have there. But certainly, this is a team that has championship aspirations. And how is Adrian Griffin going to manage this roster, manage expectations, and how are they going to fare as they are trying to integrate Dame into the system, which is a new system completely because it's a new coach. So a lot of moving pieces, but certainly the expectations are really high in Milwaukee, and I'm interested to see how he manages that throughout the season.
David, who do you got your eye on?
So is this like in a good or a bad way? Got my eye on them. Could be either one.
Either or.
I mean, in a good way, like I said, Monty. I mean, in Detroit, like I think he's gonna do a great job. But again, Brad hit the nail on the head. Adrian Griffin, he's a rookie coach, and you already got some type of potential issue. It's curious to see what's going to happen. Giannis signed the contract, so in theory, you're good there. Dame is under contract, so again, in theory, you're good there. But we know the shelf life of rookie head coaches in the NBA, regardless of their ethnicity. So we're gonna see. We are definitely gonna see.
And it's unique that the Bucks and Celtics, being the two favorites in the East, have a rookie head coach and a second-year head coach, and it's not what you're used to with the prime veteran coaches there. So very interesting. I'll mix it up a little bit here and go down to Houston with Ime Udoka, because I think it's a clash of strong willpower, aggressive style, doesn't take crap from anybody, and a team of a bunch of young guys who are looking to make their way in this league. And although they signed Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks for a little bit of veteran leadership, I'm curious to see how Ime changes the culture in Houston, because that's a really young, talented team. Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, Shengun. I love to see that team play, but with the style they had last year, where they could pretty much do whatever they want. They didn't win hardly any games, but guys were getting up shots. They were just, kind of playing hot potato. You shoot, I shoot. Ime is going to change it down there, and I'm curious to see the true reports of how those young guys handle it. And they're going to have to play defense, and they're going to have to get down and dirty. And I'm really curious to see just how he changes the culture and how those young guys react to having a proven head coach and someone who, although did what he did in Boston, we're not going to talk about that because he's in a new situation now. But I'll keep my eye on Houston quite a bit this year. So the next segment I want to get to is probably my favorite one that I came up with, and that's who's going to be your young breakout star. This league is so talented from a young perspective. And David, if you had to pick just one guy, whether it's someone who's on most people's radar or not, who do you think is going to be that young breakout star this year? Maybe similar to a Jalen Brunson in last year, who really just turned it up a notch and proved to people that he's here to play. Who's your young star this year?
I actually have got a guy that I think a lot of people were kind of discounting, and that's Tyler Hero. I think Hero's gonna have a great season for the Heat because, frankly, he has to. I mean, they do not have really anybody to play make for them outside of Jimmy Butler. They lost Gabe Vincent. They lost Max Strus. They haven't lost Kyle Lowry, but Kyle Lowry continues to lose his playmaking and just overall basketball skill set. No offense, Kyle Lowry, but the airbags is not helping you out, my boy. So Tyler Hero is going to have the ball. They're really going to need him to generate offense. I think he's a great player. I think a lot of people, like I said, kind of wrote him off because he was involved in the trade. It's just kind of like this throwaway piece because Dame was the big shiny, prize. But Tyler Hero is the real deal. We got to see that a couple seasons ago when they ended up in the finals in the bubble. I think that we really would have got to see him showcase his talent last season in the postseason if he didn't get hurt. And I think it's completely ridiculous, all the people who would try to say that the Heat were better without him, and that's how they continued to win. Ended up in the finals last year. I think that not all things are related. What Jimmy Butler did last postseason was special in itself. So I think that we just need to appreciate that for what it was. And I think this season there will be a lot of people who appreciate Tyler Hero, especially people who live in South Beach. So that's who I got my eye on.
That's a great pick. I think he's out to prove people wrong after all those trade rumors with Dame this summer. So, Brad, who's your young breakout star you think's gonna ball out?
I first want to say I'm glad you said Tyler Hero, David. I think there's been a lot of disrespect thrown on Tyler Hero's way, and certainly, I think he gets a lot of comparisons from Tyrese Maxey, who a lot of people would just like casually NBA fans say, "Oh, Tyrese Maxey's way better than Tyler Hero," when their numbers are the same. And especially someone who's had the battle injury, trade rumors, stuff off the court. Now he can just go out there and play. I'm really excited to see what he can do down there in Miami. But I'm going to go a player on the Spurs. It is not the player that you guys think I'm going to say. I'm going to go Devin Vassell for the San Antonio Spurs. I love the jump that he made from year one and year two. I mean, he increased his points per game by 6 points per game. He averaged almost 19 a game last year, shot almost 39% from three. And I think when you have Wimby, who can obviously create for others, and they are obviously Trey Jones as well, I think it's going to open up a lot of catch and shoot opportunities for Devin Vassell. So I think we're going to see a lot of big games from him. So I'm really curious to see what step he had a solid rookie year, averaging 12 points per game. You jump up to almost 19 a game last year. Year three, what is that year three jump going to be? And I think he is going to be a player, maybe not an all-star, but certainly a player that could knock on the door and surprise a lot of people. It's like, hey, who's that for sale guy in San Antonio? I mean, I tuned in to watch Victor Wembanyama who was doing Victor Wembanyama things, but Devin Vassell, very interesting guy. So I think I'm gonna go him as having a breakout year this year.
And I love those Florida State kids, man. Vassell, Scotty Barnes, Jonathan Isaac before he, got hurt. But I love what Florida State's doing. They're producing a lot of good young talent, and a lot of people probably don't know about that. So mine, I'm gonna go out west, and I'm gonna go to Sacramento with Keegan Murray. I just feel like with what Sacramento established last year and the style that they play, putting up a lot of points, Keegan Murray, I wasn't as high on coming out of the draft. You don't see many kids from Iowa doing too much in the NBA, but he proved that he could knock down the three ball. He's your classic 3-and-D, but I think he steps it up another level this year. And I just think Sacramento does so well offensively, distributing the ball, whether it's with De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis, and you've got guys who just know where to get the ball. And I think that team is really smart. I just see him taking a big step up this year, and I think Keegan Murray in year two proves why he was the number 4 overall pick. So another fun segment we're going to look at is the league pass team. Who is your league pass team? And I'm sure we all have, one of 2, 3, 4 teams on this list, but David, who's that one team you can't wait to see on league pass? Maybe an underrated team or a young team that, isn't in the spotlight like the rest of the league on ESPN and TNT, but a team that you want to see on a random Tuesday night in December.
My team is definitely the Pacers. I kind of alluded to this earlier. They only have 3 national television games this year, and yet they're hosting the All-Star game. Pretty crazy, but that is what it is. The Pacers are going to be making some noise this year. They got a bunch of really fun guys, and they got, in my opinion, probably the best passing point guard in the NBA. Tyrese Halliburton he's got a funky shot, but that dude can ball. And he's going to be putting up numbers this year. Obi Toppin has joined the show. Bruce Brown has joined the show. Buddy Hield is kind of wondering if they're about to write him out of the script, but we'll see how that goes. They got a fun team, and I think they got a lot of pieces that fit well. I think Benedict Mathurin is a guy who is going to really be putting up points this year, and he continues to impress. This is a guy who graduated from the NBA Academy, so not surprised that in the year 2, you're expecting him to do big things. So the Pacers are definitely my league pass team. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people, both in the media and on the other side of the court, because I think that they could definitely sneak up and beat some teams. So keep your eye on Indiana.
And it's funny you said that because, Brad and I are down here in the Tampa Bay area, and my team is the Orlando Magic, who I'm looking to see on League Pass this year. But when I went through Orlando's schedule this year and I said, I'm going to go down to the Amway Center and see them, the one team I picked them to see is the Pacers, because I just wanted to see what Halliburton and Matherin and those guys can do. So we're on the same page there with the Pacers, but my team is the Orlando Magic. And for Magic fans, I think it's a long time coming that they've been waiting and waiting and waiting for a breakout season. And not to say that they will be a playoff team, but I could see them definitely getting in the play-in games and see what happens with Franz and with Paolo. They've got two young superstars that I think are fearless, and that Orlando team. I mean, you could name it just with the addition of Anthony Black. I know not a lot of people are high on Jet Howard coming out of Michigan, but they do need shooting, and he's a shooter. So Orlando is young. I like what they're doing offensively. We'll see defensively how they match up with the rest of the teams in the East. But going to see them a few times living down in Florida for the last 3 years, it's been really fun to see Markelle Fultz, Cole Anthony, Suggs has had some good moments, although I'd like to see him be more consistent. Brad, Orlando's my league pass team. What about you?
And if I could jump back real quick, you mentioned Florida State players. I don't know if you guys noticed, but Carmelo Anthony's son just did an official visit to Florida State. So he is the number one shooting guard in his class. So just want to throw that out there. And another player to watch out. Watch out for Jalen Johnson in Atlanta. He's going to have a really good year this year. But it's funny that you mentioned the Magic. I almost chose them. And it's funny, David, that you mentioned the Pacers. I almost chose them. So I'm going to choose the team that you have mentioned already, Detroit basketball. They're my league pass team this year. I mean, you already talked about, being coached by Monty Williams. I already know that when you have Cade at the helm, they're going to be better offensively. I think they're going to put some things in place to give a lot of these really talented offensive players in positions where they can score. I like the draft pick of Sir Thompson. Obviously, James Wiseman gets a chance for redemption. There, you have Jaden Ivey, you have Jalen Duren, you have still have Bogdanovich as long as he's not traded, and a couple of some vets there that are sprinkled in there. I'm really interested to see with a healthy Cade Cunningham and being coached by Monty Williams, who coaches point guards pretty hard, and he's the de facto point guard. Or if they're going to give the keys to Jaden Ivey, that's going to be interesting as well too. But certainly, what they do offensively, what system do they have in place, and how can he get the most out of these young, really talented, hungry players in Detroit? So that's a team that if they're on in league pass, I'm going to tune in and watch.
And we'll wrap up with a little bit of predictions, followed by a little grab bag of some random quick hitter questions. So, David, I'm going to start with you. What are your predictions? Eastern Conference Finals, Western Conference Finals, and who do you think's taking home the championship this year?
Eastern Conference Finals. My prediction is definitely that the Celtics and the Bucks are going to end up squaring off against each other. We'll see how the standings break out, but those would be my two pick. And unfortunately for Bucks fans, I have the Celtics pulling out the win. And in the West, I am really hoping that the Suns are going to get it done, man. I'm hoping for a Suns Nuggets Western Conference Finals. That's going to be a real test for him. For those who don't know, Nurkic and Jokic were teammates at one point in time, and the Denver Nuggets had to make a choice on which player they wanted to keep. I think they made the right choice. So we'll see. We'll see what Nurkic looks like going up against his old teammate, because that's going to be a matchup he's going to continuously see. So unfortunately, I'm going to pick the Nuggets coming out of that too. So I got the Nuggets and the Celtics squaring off in the finals, and I got Jokic repeating, getting another MVP, much to the chagrin of Jason Tatum, who I think might win MVP in the regular season.
Okay. Brad, what about you?
I think David is looking at my paper. Certainly, we have the same teams, but I'm going a different path. I think Milwaukee and Boston are going to be the Eastern Conference Finals. I think Milwaukee edges Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. In the West, I have the Nuggets and the Suns. I think the Nuggets beat the Suns in the Western Conference Finals, and I'm going to go the Bucks beating the Nuggets in the finals. So I think the Milwaukee Bucks, even with all that we are interested in looking at as far as Adrian Griffin coaching and managing that team throughout the regular season, if they can stay healthy, I have the Bucks beating the Nuggets in the 7-game series, and Giannis and Dame getting his first ring. Obviously, Giannis and Middleton and the rest of the core getting their second rings, respectively.
And I think all y'all looked at my paper because we got the same Eastern and Western Conference final matchup. So, but the three of us do have different finals predictions. So I have the Celtics over the Bucks in the East. I've got the Nuggets over the Suns in the West, and then I've got Joe Mazzulla and the Boston Celtics taking down Jokic and the Nuggets. So I see Boston taking the title. I think Tatum's right in that prime, and we've seen him grow up. He was 19 years old, dunking on LeBron in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think he's just finally ready to take that leap and that step. He's been 5 out of the last 7 Eastern Conference Finals. I think Porzingis added to the mix with Drew Holiday is just a huge addition, and I think they mixed it up. And I think as long as Porzingis stays healthy, Boston's gonna get to take this title. So we'll do a little quick grab bag. So you can be brief with it. You can elaborate if you want. David, I'll start with you. Scoot Henderson or Victor Wembanyama, better NBA career before they even step foot on an NBA floor?
Well, I'm really sorry I had to be Scoot 2 times because it happened to him in the draft. But sorry, my boy, you're gonna be number 2 again. Well, that's technically he was number 3. You're gonna be number 2 this time because it's Wembanyama. I mean, the guy's a freak. There's nothing else to say about it. He's gonna have a crazy career as long as he can stay healthy, and it seems like he will. So, yeah, it's Wembanyama.
You know, I have to say the same thing, but I was on record as a seventh grader saying Greg Oden is going to have a better NBA career than Kevin Durant, and that did not age
I
so
warned you.
well, guys. Brad, what do you think with those two? I mean, he's a freak.
Just like my favorite character, his name on Young and the Restless, I got to go with Victor. I think Victor's going to have a better NBA career. I like Scoot. I think Scoot's going to have a really great career, and I think he's going to contend for Rookie of the Year conversation this year. I think it, I think he's going to contend. I think it's going to be a two-man race. I think it's going to come down to Chet and Victor, but obviously, going back to the question, I'm going to say Victor is going to have the better NBA career, especially what he can do defensively, not even talking about what he can do offensively, which is already special at this point in juncture.
Yeah, and we've hit a lot of the grab bag questions just throughout, so I'll throw a few randoms at you guys. But my next will be which of the Thompson twins is in a better situation and do you think has the better career? Amen in Houston or Asar in Detroit? We've had the Morris twins, the Lopez twins. The league turns out some twins, but David, which one of the Thompson twins do you think is in a better situation in Houston or Detroit? Because they're very similar.
I swear I'm not from Michigan, but I'm living in Detroit, okay? Because it's Asar. I definitely think Asar's in a better situation, just because he's in a situation where he's going to be, I think, allowed to develop, uh, at a more steady pace. I think Ime is in Houston because they're expected to win, and if Amen can't contribute to that immediately, I do wonder what his role looks like on that team. So, a little bit more of an uphill battle for him, but I think they're both, relatively good situations.
Brad, what about you with the twins?
I agree with David. I think Asar is going to be in a better situation just because and M.A. Doak is a great coach, but I just like Monty Williams a little bit better for what he has in Detroit right now. And as I'm looking right now, I have Asar on my fantasy team. The guy has 6 blocks in opening night. Right? 6 blocks on opening night. Now he's 1 of 7 from the floor shooting. Shooting will come. We're not worried about that. But when you have 4.7 rebounds, 3 assists, and 6 blocks in your first NBA game, I'm going to overlook 1 for 7 from the floor. But certainly just because of the better talent and the better coach at this point in juncture right now in Detroit, I'm going to say a certain time.
And people rave about the Twins' athleticism. I'm really curious to see what they do. So we'll end on this question. 3 young guys all going into their third year. Jalen Suggs in Orlando, Evan Mobley in Cleveland, Scotty Barnes in Toronto. Which of those 3, Brad, do you think steps up this year and takes the reign from that draft class? I know there were other guys drafted in that class, but we've seen the 3 of them kind of have their ups and downs throughout their first 2 years. Between Suggs, Mobley, and Barnes, which one do you see taking that step up and separating themselves from the bunch?
As much as I want to say Barnes, as long as Pascal Siakam's on that team, I think his ceiling is capped a little bit. in Toronto. So I'm going to go with Evan Mobley because they need him to be that guy year three. I think one of the disappointments that you alluded to, Cleveland not having a better playoff performance was the kind of disappearing act and maybe being in unfamiliar territory. Obviously, only having 1 year at USC and not having a long run as far as in the NCAA tournament for Evan Mobley, just not really being familiar in that situation at these higher stages. I think it's going to be required of him this year, and he needs to take that step. And I think because of the situation that he's in compared to Scotty Barnes, not to take away anything from Jalen Suggs, he has injury issues that has really curtailed his career in Orlando. But certainly because of the position that he's in, he's going to be counted on. I'm going to go Evan Mobley.
David, what about you out of those three in that bunch?
I'm definitely rolling with Evan Mobley. He is definitely on my big board for Defensive Player of the Year candidates. I think that Mobley is in a situation where they really need him to take a step forward. People were kind of expecting him to last year for one reason or another. It didn't quite happen, but they need it. He's got the skill set. He's got the pedigree, and frankly, it's put up or shut up time in Cleveland. So he's one of those pieces. They're really going to need him to shine because he got completely outworked by Mitchell Robinson last year. And I'm sure that left a sour taste in his mouth. So hopefully both him and Donovan Mitchell come ready to go. But as I said, I think Evan Mobley is in pole position to potentially win Defensive Player of the Year. So I would be keeping a big eye on him.
You know, Scotty Barnes is my guy, so I got to roll with him. Just love what he
I know
does.
it is.
Big smile. He just does so much, can guard 1 through 5. So I'm rolling with my guy, your boy Scotty on Instagram. So thank you guys so much. This has been fantastic. Maybe we'll catch up around Christmas time to kind of see where the NBA season has shaken out since then. But I appreciate your time and we'll get this out to the people.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. And hey, let's go Pels. Fly Pelicans, fly, baby.
Yes, sir. All right, guys.